This review has been brought to you in part by Main Irish Airsoft and ASG. Hi, welcome back, Ollie's Airsoft, and today we're doing another review, and this time round we are looking at the iconic one and only Sten gun from the Second World War, used predominantly by the British Commandos. Now, a little quick history lesson before we get into this review. The British Sten gun was born on the back of one of England's biggest defeats, and that was Dunkirk. If you know your history, Dunkirk was a complete nightmare. We saw the British Expeditionary Forces, or BEF, practically wiped out and forced back out of the European zone onto the beaches of Dunkirk, where they left a lot of their weapons behind. Up to that point, the British had been buying huge amounts of Thompson machine guns from the Yanks, and on arriving back to England with no weapons, found that they were out of pocket, out of weapons, and still very much in the war. So three designers got together. Major Reginald Shepherd was one guy. Harold Turpin was another, and obviously Enfield was the last guy. So if you take the first initial from each of their surnames, the S Shepherd, T for Turpin, and EN for Enfield, that's the acronym which gives you the Sten. Now there's Mark 1, 2, 3s and 4s. Number 2, which this one is the most widely used, and there was something like 4 million of them in circulation during and just after the Second World War. Okay, that's the history part over. Let's get into the review, because let's face it, we've got two guns here. This is the bog standard vanilla box that this particular gun came in. This is the Sten Mark II by Viva, and I have to say, look, if you're expecting anything really fancy and nice, these are a exact replica of the World War II gun. They are a cheap gun that were cheaply made, spot welded and bolted together in less than 5 hours, and were made for buttons. It's the only way England could stay in the war and compete. And let's face it, these things didn't compete with any of the German guns. But the paratroopers from the British Army, they loved these things, and most of the commandos loved them because they could be stripped down, carried very easily, were very easy to clean. There was pretty much zero in them to go wrong. They were damn effective pieces of hip firing machinery. But now, you know, the iconic stance of the commandos holding the mag, it didn't happen. They held it like this. The reason being, if you put pressure on the mag, the feeding would stop. So they held it like this or like that when they were firing. There was none of this running from the hip shooting like you see in the movies. Alright, so that's the first thing out of the way. So what do I think of this one by Viva? Well, it's a pile of doo-doo. It's a lovely wall hanger, but do you know what? Two things really piss me off about it. Number one, the mag. No thought or care put in it, because the mag they have given with this gun is a well, it's actually been labelled with writing saying MP41 Schmeiser. So obviously this company make an MP41 somewhere down the line, and have just basically stuck the same magazine into the Sten as the Schmeiser that they create. So do you know what? That's pretty poor show. If you're going to create a weapon, have it at least with the right parts. Second thing is, it's got no hop adjustment in it. It's a fixed hop, which basically renders it absolutely useless for skirmishing. So what we have here is an amazing looking wall hanger, but that's pretty much it. A wall hanger. So let's get rid of the Viva, because I'm least impressed with that, and bring on the one that actually does work and does look the shizzle. Okay, ASG, yada yada. You already know I love ASG, guys, so I'm not going to go over it and over it and over it. But again, attention to detail on the packaging is second to none. And here's a lovely little thing that they've written on the box, and I have to turn it around so you can hear it. It says here in a quote, "We shall defend our island. Whatever the cost may be, we shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills, and we shall never surrender." So Winston Churchill, liked or loathed, man was absolutely an iconic genius. Right, so what do we get for our bucks? Again, ASG are bringing these things at a relatively cheap price for what you're getting. And the thing is, the packaging and the extras, the goodies that they give. Yes, you get the usual blurb, how to look after your gun. Read it, it makes all the sense. But it's what's inside it that I really like. Now you've got 2 chargers, right, which will charge the stock battery. The 2 different chargers, one's a 2-pin plug and one's a 3-pin. Lovely little touch. I mean, it's insignificant really on the scheme of things, but you know, there's a speed loader, cleaning barrel rod, a couple of BBs, and then obviously the Sten itself. It is much more impressive than the other one, and there are a couple of reasons why. Okay, for packing away, this thing rotates round. It then sits into its holder, locks in tight. I'm just going to get the box out of the way. And yes, we're back in the room with a lovely looking Sten. Pot metal used, and it looks identical to the other one. It's a Sten Mark II again. Everything is very vanilla on it because, let's face it, these guns were very vanilla. It's very uncomfortable to hold. You don't know where to, I mean, you have a slot and you think, oh, is that where my finger goes? And yet it kind of does and it doesn't, but it's sore because it's identical to the real steel version of 1939 when this was, 1940 when it was created. The mag feeds flawlessly. I've done a few tests on it, absolutely spot on. It's a mid cap, so why wouldn't it feed flawlessly? You can get high caps, but to be honest with you, I would only get mid caps for this because that's what this was all about. Slap it in and there's no winding at the end because that would make it a little bit tedious and difficult. Iron sights are the usual shebang, but you know what, all in all, I have to say, superb. I can't fault it. Look, do you know, you can't wax lyrical about a gun that's so basic as a Sten. It's not a modern piece of equipment, but it is an iconic piece. And for anybody who's wishing to recreate that sort of Denniston Smart Commando look of World War II, it's got to be this gun. It's got to be. Adjustable hop-up works very well. No issues on that score. Very simple to adjust. And all in all, you know, yeah, I have to say, very impressed. ASG, as I said, have worked tirelessly to sort of get hold of the stuff out there that's worth playing with, and they're keeping it as cheap as they can to get more airsofters building up, you know, their stockpiles, which is great. I'm all for that. So, as I said, we'll get into a chrono and obviously then a little bit of footage of me testing it on a firing range. But as I said, for iconic guns, it doesn't get any more iconic. I mean, the Thompson for me is an iconic gun from the Yank era. This is a British gun through and through, and love the Brits or hate them, you know, in their day, they got it together. We're back in Main Irish Airsoft and we're going to chrono the Sten submachine gun. We're using the Scan Chrono, which has been certified, and I also have an X-Score check above to give us a burst reading of how many rounds per second. So we'll have a look now.
There you go.
Now, as you can see, we're running around the 97 mark pretty consistently. It's very hard to get an exact reading on single shot because it's not a single shot gun. It is a burst gun. So now we're going to have a look at the X-Score tech. Hang on one second. Go. Nope. 328 on the nose on burst. These are a 2 gram BB and we're just going to refill yeah. So 16.3 bb's per second. Again, not at the rate of an M4, but because you're looking around 20 to 23 bb's per second on an M4, but a very doable 16.3, which is about right for the period gun that it is. So what do I think of it? Well, I had a plink of it at Red Barn, and I have to say ASG have made what is essentially a real wall hanger. They've made it a workable piece of skirmishing equipment. So yeah, very impressive. Look, it's never going to be a comfortable item to use because of the basic make of it. But, you know, for a World War piece, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It looks the part. And as I said at the beginning of the review, it's an iconic piece, and certainly one I would have no problem using, especially if I was in a World War II loadout and others were doing the same. It doesn't stand toe-to-toe with modern M4s, but it was never going to. So I want to thank Main Irish Airsoft for supplying us the ASG Sten Mark II for review, and we'll talk to you soon.